Good afternoon. This is an open hearing of the independent inquiry into matters relating to Afghanistan. The use of mobile telephones in the courtroom or annex is prohibited, save for a limited dispensation to the State Corps participant teams for the purpose of seating instructions. Please could I ask you to ensure that all other mobile telephones have been switched off or turned to silent. Please may I draw your attention to the fact that the Chair of the Inquiry, the Right Honourable Sir Justice Haddon-Cave, has made a restriction order in relation to this hearing. Copies of the restriction order are available on request, but in substance the order made has the following effect. 1. This order restricts attendance in the courtroom of the open hearings scheduled to hear evidence about the deletion of material at UK Special Forces Headquarters computer server known in these proceedings as ITS1. 2. Attendance in the courtroom in which the hearing is to be held, namely Court 73, is restricted as follows. To members of the inquiry team and the recognised legal representatives of the core participants and the following witnesses when they are giving evidence. N5857, a contractor and the infrastructure engineer. N5858, a contractor and the manager of N5857. To members of the inquiry team and to the core participant, recognised legal representatives only when the following witnesses are giving evidence. N5859, an officer in UKSF involved in information systems. N5595, who carries out internal investigation. N2311-UKSF Information Manager. 3. Recognised legal representatives include the legal team assisting the recognised legal representative in the discharge of the recognised legal representative's functions. This order prohibits by restriction, publication or dissemination the identities of any of the witnesses listed in paragraph 2 above or any information which might lead to their identification. The purpose of restricting attendance in the courtroom where the hearing is taking place is to protect both the witness's identity and this order. To ensure public access, a live video link of the hearing will be shown in the annex courtroom to which the public will have admittance. The live video link will not show the witnesses so that their physical appearance is concealed, but their evidence may be heard. In accordance with the General Restriction Order for Inquiry Hearings dated 23rd of October 2023, no person may disclose, publish or broadcast in any form or by any means anything that is said or done in the inquiry hearing room until 10 minutes after it takes place. Counsel to the inquiry or the solicitor to the inquiry must be informed of any request to make an application for a restriction order in relation to anything that has been said or done in the inquiry hearing room in the preceding 10 minutes. Anything that was said or done during that period will then be subject to a restriction order prohibiting its disclosure, repetition or duplication until the Chair has finally determined the application. Where such a request is made, the courtroom may be cleared for the Chair to consider whether there has been a breach of any restriction order, and both the live video link to the annex and the live stream YouTube recording will be temporarily stopped. Once the Chair has determined the matter enclosed, the live video link to the annex room and to YouTube will be recommenced. The Chair will confirm if a restriction order is to be made and what steps, if any, are to be taken to ensure compliance. The above orders are subject to a penal notice. This means that any breach of any element of the restriction orders may be certified to the High Court or the Court of Session, who will have the power to fine or imprison anyone found to have been in breach of the order. All rise.
I'm sorry that everybody's being kept waiting, but thank you very much for your patience. This is one of the pragmatic things we have to do in order to hold as much as we can in public. Before we recommence, I'm going to make another restriction order as follows. Following the hearing this morning on the application of the Ministry of Defence, I make a restriction order restricting from publication, dissemination, disclosure, or repetition anything that was said or done today at the hearing of the issue known as ITS-1 during the period from 12:30 to 12:52, save as appears in the official transcript, which will be published on the inquiry's website shortly. This order to remain in place until varied or further order. Thank you very much. Mr. Glasgow.
Please, you, sir, could I invite Mr. Pridden to come back into the witness box? Thank you very much indeed. Pridden, can I invite you to do as we did before, which is to remove the witness statement from the file that you have with you. And we were looking together behind divider number 19, and in particular at an email sent from you to N2311 on the 12th of July 2016 at 10:36. The reference within the divider, tab 19, it would be in fact be the third page, but it is numbered in the bottom, page 2, as you can see in the copy that you've got available to you. You may recall before we turned to look at this email together, I'd asked you whether any of the email exchanges that we were considering related to the server known as ITS-1. If we look together at the email that you had sent to N2311 on the 12th of July, we can see that you begin by thanking the N2311 for agreeing to the short notice visit yesterday, which therefore must have been the 11th of July of 2016. And you then begin, as discussed, the data held by your unit and its forensic recovery to support Op Northmore investigations is our top priority, and your assistance in moving this along as swiftly as possible is much appreciated. And then you wrote, we discussed a proportionate approach to the collection of electronically stored information from your unit, and to assist us with that, we agreed yesterday 3 courses of action that need to be taken as soon as possible. And then in the body of the email, you set out the 3 courses of action that you understood had been agreed. Very briefly, dealing with those if we can. Action 1. You will identify where all the obvious electronically stored information resides on your computer systems, networks and backups pertaining to Afghanistan operations. And then number 2, you indicate using a warrant officer as a focal point. That individual will be, and we looked at the second line, provided with a list of names and roles with specific date ranges of individuals of interest to Op Northmore investigations. And then if we look to the last few lines of paragraph 2, once the warrant officer has the list of names, he will identify which computer systems and or networks these individuals had access. He will then assist in pinpointing where any ESI, electronically stored information, including electronic communication data that currently exists in live or backup format, by facilitating access to the relevant computer network administrators and or the local security teams for the individuals identified on the list. And number 3, which is of particular relevance to the question that I'd asked you before we looked at this email. 3, you will arrange a meeting ASAP with UK SF4 and CC1 if required for ITS1. This is an obvious location where electronically stored information and people of interest will have had access. we need to start arrangements for access to the network, understanding it, and to develop SOPs, standard operating procedures, to recover the electronically stored information in a forensically acceptable format and process. So just if we consider particularly action point number 3 that had been agreed with N2311 on the 11th of July, what you had discussed with that individual was that there would be a meeting as soon as possible with UKSF4 and the relevant civilian contractor regarding getting access to the data held on ITS-1. And you'd indicated it was an obvious location where electronically stored information might reside and where persons of interest might have had access. And I'm sorry, I'm going to need to ask you to answer. I appreciate that you're nodding,
sure,
and I can see that, but that doesn't work so well on the transcript. So forgive me.
Can you say yes for the transcript, yes, or no?
Sure.
Thank you.
So, and again, what you'd identified there was a need, as at the 11th and 12th of July, to start arrangements for getting access to the network and to ensuring the recovery of evidentially stored information, electronically stored information, in a forensically acceptable format and process.
Yes.
So what I'd been asking you before was the discussions at a higher level, in particular between Provost Marshal Army and Director Special Forces, that had gone on between them at the highest level about getting access to the material on ITS-1. But we can also see that at a lower level, you yourself were still making inquiries and pursuing action agreements with, for example, N2311 on behalf of UKSF to secure access to ITS-1.
That's right, yeah.
Can we leave this particular exhibit, and what I'd like to do is to turn in the bundle to tab 21 for a moment. I'm afraid there's a little bit of moving about in the bundle, and I apologise for that. Unhelpfully, in putting the bundle together, I've not put it in a chronological order, which would have been the obvious thing to do. But bear with me, and we'll try to tiptoe our way through it into a relevant order. Behind tab number 21, and ignoring the front page, which is the identification reference number, if we look to the second page, which is a policy file report of the 1st of August of 2016, and I'll wait while the computer catches up. Thank you very much indeed. Do we see here a policy file report entry made at 6 minutes past 2 in the afternoon on the 1st of August 2016. It was entered by the Senior Investigating Officer for Op Northmore, Captain Wright. We see the name for Captain Wright and his status as SIO for Op Northmore appearing at the bottom.
Yes.
And if we just look to the text that's recorded in this report, the decision relates to data recovery. ITS-1 is the live IT network operated by SFHQ UK. It holds relevant historical data pertinent to T1, that's Team 1 in Op Northmore investigations. So that's the team looking into extrajudicial killings. To date, I have pended its entire recovery, as to close it down for recovery purposes will jeopardise current SF operations around the world. Following a meeting with UK SF4, WO2 Pridden has secured an agreement in principle to recover the whole server, total network and complete dataset following its migration or copying onto a new network. Following migration, the old system can be provided to Northmore. This course of action is favoured and is my intent. Migration is due to commence in September 2016, exact date to be confirmed, but in principle this should take a period of weeks. Once migrated, the redundant server can be secured and preserved by RMP for data interrogation. And then the reason given, I've been unable to secure and preserve the ITS-1 server until this time due to its necessity to support ongoing SF operation. And it must be once redundant post-migration, the old server can be recovered without negatively impacting. So if we just think about that policy file entry in conjunction with the email exchanges we'd seen in mid-July, we've now got to the beginning of August. There had been discussion between you and N2311 at a meeting on the 11th of July, where 3 courses of action have been identified, one of which related to ITS1.
That's right.
And we now know that by the 1st of August, so about 2 or 3 weeks later, there is now an entry in the policy file for Op Northmore, which records that a decision is, or there is about to be a process taking place to move material from one server to another, which would permit, if it happens, the RMP to get access to the old server. And you touched upon that, I think, when you first gave us some evidence before lunch.
That's right, yeah.
So rather than having to go in and take a forensic copy, which could take some time depending on the amount of information and would impact on its operational effectiveness, you could now, if able to, take the redundant server and have, as you told us, the whole thing that you were after.
That's right. We'd still take a forensic copy. That's what the plan was, but it would enable them to carry on operations without being impacted by what we were doing.
Is that because you take the forensic copy from the redundant server?
That's right, yes. Yes, sir.
And is that because what you don't want to do when you're given an original exhibit like a server is to start work on it in case in some way you damage it? So by taking a forensic copy, you can then work on something without damaging the original exhibit?
Yes, in digital forensics, you never work on the original data. You always work on a forensic copy because by accessing the data itself, you can change it. So you need a defendable point-in-time copy, which doesn't change. So you can verify your results and prove provenance from that point onwards.
Can we go back to some other emails? And we're going to look into tab 20 for a moment. And since it's a chain of emails, we'll need to start at the back. We just looked at the policy entry for the beginning of August. The emails that we're going to look at span the period 29th of July to the 16th of August. So we need to imagine that the policy entry fits somewhere in the middle of this chain. But if we just look to the last email for a moment, and thank you very much indeed for bringing it up on the screen. 29th of July, sent from you and to a number of people, including, as before, N2311. Do you see that cipher applied in the carbon copy list?
Yep.
Just a quick follow-up email regarding our meeting yesterday. So we paused, there must have been a meeting on the 28th of July in order for you to write this on the 29th. I can confirm the timeline for Afghanistan operations we are interested is from a year given until 2013. Please confirm where the data resides and what systems. I've discussed the detail of the meeting with Captain Wright, who, as you identify as the Senior Investigating Officer for Team 1 Northmore, who agrees that working on your decommissioned data area in September 16 after you've transferred the data to your new system is the best course of action, as long as you can confirm that no data will be deleted from the decommissioned system during that process. So if we pause for a moment, if what you've written here is a correct reflection of the meeting the day before on the 28th of July, it would seem that you have discussed with representatives from UKSF the fact that there is going to be a redundant server as at September of that year.
Yes, that's correct.
That you want to get access to that decommissioned system, since it's the best way of getting all the available information in one place.
That's right.
And that you've clarified at that meeting on the 28th of July, and again in this email, that you want confirmation that no data will be deleted from the decommissioned system during the transfer process from one set of servers to another.
That's right, yeah.
And you'd mentioned that you discussed not wanting the deletion or changing or modification of data on a number of occasions. Just trying to cast your mind back as best as you can. and I appreciate I'm taking you back to 2016. We're dealing with July of that year. Do you think this was raised for the first time in this particular meeting when you were told about the possibility of getting a decommissioned server? Or do you think that you'd raised the need to not delete data before that meeting?
No, we were very clear from the first engagement with UKSF that what we needed to do for a investigation and the process that we need to follow. Before this date, we'd already recovered the standalone system from Afghanistan, and we took a forensic copy and we took the original system into evidence. So they were fully aware of why we were doing it, or we would have just copied data off that. So they're fully aware of why we wanted deleted data during that process, because we've done it before with them just a few months earlier.
Can we continue with this email chain?
Yeah.
So we'll need to go back to page 2 if you wouldn't mind. And on the 8th of August, so we need to imagine that the policy file report takes place in between the two emails, the one we've looked at and the one we're about to look at. We're now the 8th of August, and it's an email from Staff Sergeant Sivieri. And we see here, I've attempted to make contact with 5859, but unfortunately haven't been able to speak to him. We're still waiting on the answers from the question posed by WO2 Pridden on 29th July, which will enable us to expedite our ability to conduct R&D in the anticipation of working on ITS-1. And just to reflect back to those questions, if we just go back to page 3 for a moment and look at it, the two questions that had been asked were numbers 1 and 2, confirm the version of Microsoft Exchange used on ITS-1, and then confirm the version of Microsoft SharePoint used on ITS-1. Can you remember now whether you were given answers to those questions or not?
No, I don't think we were.
Well, we can certainly see that as at the 8th of August, Staff Sergeant Sivieri was pointing out that the answers were still outstanding. If we run our finger up the page, we can see that an email sent to Staff Sergeant Sivieri. Apologies, 5859 is on leave at the moment. I forwarded your request to somebody else. I'm also afraid we need to postpone next week's meeting, and that's been handed over to N5966, and that individual is going to be the point of contact. Do we see that?
Do you?
Then if we turn to the final email in the chain, taking us to the 16th of August, an email that forwards an email from Captain Wright to UKSF. So it's sent by WO2 Dempster to UKSF, but it in fact provides a text of an email from Captain Wright that is being sent on by WO2 Dempster. Do you see that?
I do.
And if we just look then together at the text of that email sent on the 16th of August, I'm the Senior Investigating Officer for certain areas of Op Northmoor and have a vested interest in the data recovery from your location. Staff Sergeant Sivieri has briefed me on the very useful meeting held on the 28th of July at UKSF4. I remain grateful for your support. I appreciate in terms of timing for you this is not great as you're moving on. For me, this is a crucial phase of evidence recovery, and I must be able to demonstrate that I have secured and preserved the relevant evidence. Not to do so would expose the investigation and the MOD to potential criticism. So we can see there in the body of the message from Captain Wright a warning being given to UKSF as to how significant he, Captain Wright, regards the recovery of the electronic data.
That's right.
And was that a concern that you shared with the SIO, Captain Wright?
Yeah, it was, yeah. Essentially, because we're working with the people day to day, the politics and the arguments take place at a higher level.
In the next paragraph, Captain Wright picks up on the cancellation of the proposed meeting scheduled for the 17th of August, the next day. And what he identifies is a request that that be rescheduled for the earliest opportunity. If we look to the middle of the paragraph, this will enable our cyber team to prepare the necessary work in order not to impact on the operational effectiveness on your unit and those you administer on an IT footing. Further delay will prevent the recovery of this evidence. And then, as I understand, please correct me if I've got this wrong and excuse the technical ignorance, the following will take place as agreed. The switch of data to a new server will take place imminently. Grateful if you could confirm the exact date. With the redundant server being switched off, RMP are to be present when this occurs. And does that accord with your understanding that when there was to be a change from one system to the other, you, the RMP, would be present and that you would ultimately be given access to the redundant server?
Yes, it does. The reason we asked for that was because we wanted to make sure that the system was working when we took it into our possession.
The last thing you want to do is to be given a system which, when you plug it in when you get home to the office, nothing happens.
Yes, exactly.
Item 2 of the matters that he wants confirmation about. Agreement has been reached that RMP will have unrestricted access to the powered down server, which contains all original data, inclusive of deleted data. So again, Captain Wright making the point that's been made in other correspondence and that you yourself have made, that the RMP wanted access to everything.
Exactly.
And then 3, the redundant server will then be able to be moved to another secure location for further forensic examination by RMP. And does that accord with your understanding of what was to happen, that you would be given not only access to the server, but ultimately allowed to take it away with you, where it would be stored at an appropriate location and examined?
I think what we were trying to do is plan for every eventuality. We didn't know whether we hadn't actually been shown the server, so we hadn't even got hands on it to understand what hardware it was, and we wanted to keep our options open in relation to were we going to image it, forensically copy it on site at in the UK, or whether we were going to at the UK SF location, or whether we were going to take it to a secure location and then image it ourselves there. The decision on that hadn't been made, so that's why we're just keeping our options open.
If we look to the next paragraph and the last 2 lines, please, Captain Wright indicates that as the SIO, I have agreed that we can wait for the old server to become available so as not to negatively impact on your effectiveness. This has been prioritised over the need for securing and preserving evidence. So it would seem a decision had been taken, certainly by the SIO, if not at a higher level, that the UKSF would be able to continue its work and that you, the RMP, would wait until such time as you could be given access to the information without causing any impact on UKSF.
Yes, that's right. Like we discussed before, there were conversations at the very top of the military in relation to the action we should take, and we were told, we're not going to seize it, make it work, and this is us making it work.
So ultimately, as we see here, it prioritises the requirements of UKSF over the desire of the investigating team to secure and preserve evidence as quickly and accurately as possible.
That's right.
He then begins in the next paragraph, separately, I would be keen to seek a solution regarding data recovery from the old faithful server. Now, maybe that has nothing to do with ITS1, and if it does, then I don't need to ask you about it. But in referring to the old faithful server, does that have anything to do with the server that's to become redundant when the transfer process takes place, or is it to do with an entirely different server? Or do you not now remember?
I'm not quite sure what they're referring to be honest. The Old Faithful, it's not a term which I was accustomed to. It was, I don't know whether, Captain Wright would know what that is, but I don't know which system he's talking about at that point. I've never heard of that.
a question then for Captain Wright in due course, if appropriate. That took us to an email on the 16th of August. And again, we're going to jump around the bundle to keep you on your toes. Could I ask you to turn to divider number 18, please, which takes us to a policy file note dated the 15th of August. So again, the day before the email we've just looked at. Similar format as the last one. Timed at 3 minutes past 3 in the afternoon. Entered by Captain Wright, the SIO for Team 1 at Northmoor. Relates to data recovery and reads as follows. Following various delays in any agreement to recover the ITS-1 dataset, VTC, video telephone call, held with N1805 and ACOS at UK SFHQ in an effort to end the impasse, following an explanation repeating the requirement to recover the ITS-1 system and the reasoning behind why RMP have not seized this to date, no firm agreement given by N1805, who preferred to delay any decision pending tech and security advice. And then the reason: further delay is now being encountered in respect of ITS-1 recovery. Gold, so the head of the investigating team, the head of the operation, Gold has directed that we attempt to recover the dataset amicably without the need at this stage to do so using our prerogative powers.
Gold was Major Harvey.
And as we can see here then, Captain Wright recording that Major Harvey has told him, as you've told us, a decision had been taken at a high level not to use compulsory powers to seize the data on ITS-1. Efforts were made to try to end the problem amicably. And as you understand it, at around this time, and certainly by the next day, there was to be made available to you, the RMP, the redundant server as and when the migration had taken place.
From memory, I can recall in meetings they'd agreed, they'd suggested taking the old server as an alternative to working on the new one or the existing one, because they're doing this data change. It seemed to make sense, and however, whenever we tried to firm up those agreements and actually move it forward, the will wasn't there, essentially.
And when you talk about the will not being there, is that the will with higher-ups, or the will with higher-ups at the RMP, or the will with higher-ups at UKSF, or anyone else in general?
Well, the team administering the server, we needed to engage with them to get technical detail, understand what it was, and arrange visits. And you can see from the emails that we tried to do that, but they either postpone, they hand over to other people. It just, consistently frustrated actually moving forward.
Can I help you possibly in identifying some of that frustration? Can I ask you to look to divider 22, please, to a policy file report on the 8th of September. And if we remind ourselves, in the discussions that had taken place in July and August, it was anticipated the migration might take place in September, but the date was recorded as to be confirmed. Do you remember when we looked at that a moment ago?
Yes.
We're now at the 8th of September. Captain Wright again at 4:07 that afternoon records the following policy file report, again relating to data recovery. Recovery of ITS-1 data remains an outstanding issue. Previous arrangements and agreements have failed its result in, I think it should be failed to result in its recovery. I have reiterated my desire and rationale to recover the entire system once it becomes redundant to N1805. ACDS at SFHQ UK and he have elected not to agree to this course of action under the, I think that should be auspices of what appears to be fear regarding the security of the data. Granted, ITS-1 will contain data information that is not relevant to Op Northmoor or to the Afghanistan theatre of operations, but in order to protect and ensure forensic provenance, it must be recovered in its entirety. N1805 did not appear assured by the fact that blank were content with our course of action, given that those blank have equity in the ITS-1 server. Matter raised to AH Tech Colonel Morris in the absence of gold. So there we can see Captain Wright recording the fact that recovery is still an outstanding issue as at the 8th of September. And we remind ourselves that the first note that we looked at was in October 2015, so 10 months before this. As to his reasoning, he explains again, the requirement to recover ITS-1 remains unchanged and the rationale has been previously documented. Colonel Morris passed this issue as it is not one that N1805 would agree on with me. Ultimately, we, and then there's an undecipherable word, the data as we know, there is relevant evidence on it. We have prerogative powers under Section 95 of the Armed Forces Act and can lawfully secure and preserve it. Once redundant, there appears to be little justification in SFHQ UK refusing to assist.
I think the delay between October and now is that we didn't have anywhere to take it, so even if we seized it, we couldn't do anything with it. And but by this time, in September 2016, St Morgan was coming online, and we had the facility to actually hold the data in that location. So,
if we look to divider 23, please. Just over a week later, on the 16th of August, a further policy file report entered by Captain Wright on the same issue, data recovery. Recovery of, I'll wait for the screen to catch up, and I'm sorry. Page 2 if it helps. Thank you very much indeed. Recovery of ITS-1 remains part of my MLOE, main line of inquiry, or major line of inquiry, and has been a drawn-out process. Matter raised direct with Provost Marshal Army and AH Tech. The reasons for recovery remain the same which were outlined to both officers. AH Tech will now lead discussions on this direct with N1805. I explained that we have in law the powers to take it. A course of action I will enact post-migration onto the new server. Provost Marshal Army wished to maintain analogue with Director Special Forces before this in an effort to reach an amicable solution. And then he records his reasoning. Issue of recovery of ITS-1, whilst agreements and provisional acceptance of Northmore recovering it have been made, nothing has materialised, and those agreements have not been formalised, despite my best efforts. Colonel Morris would engage direct with N1805 in an effort to move this forward. We have the lawful authority to recover ITS-1 and will do so if an agreement cannot be reached. And I appreciate, of course, I'm asking you to cast your mind back now to the summer of 2016 or the early autumn. But when we look at the words of Captain Wright, where he appears to express frustration, does that accord with your recollection of how he felt about the time it had taken to get access to ITS-1?
yeah, there was huge amounts of frustration because obviously the inquiry needs to move forward. So,
And was that frustration that you shared?
yes, it was, yeah.
And was it frustration that was discussed amongst the members of the Op Northmore Team 1 whenever you spoke about ITS-1?
Well, it was certainly discussions that the leadership of Team 1 had in regards to what else can we do.
Can I take you on A little later in the chronology now, please, we're going to look, with your help, at divider number 24. And there are a series of emails there, and again, as before, can we start at the back of the tab and work our way towards the front? So it's reverse chronological order. And the first email is sent on the 27th of September of 2016. So just less than a fortnight after the policy file entry we've just looked at by Captain Wright. We can see here an email sent from N2311 on the 27th of Northmore to you. And then it reads, notwithstanding the ongoing discussions on authority to copy our entire data set, I would like to clarify a couple of things with regard to ensuring the data set is available to you if once the authority is received. So just pausing for a moment, if what is written there is correct, it would seem that as at the 27th of September, there is still not final permission that's been given to recover the entire data set from ITS1.
That's correct.
And then identifying the couple of things that need to be ensured. The first bullet point. I've confirmed with the UKSF4 that Op Northmore personnel, maximum 2, will be present when the civilian company 1 conducts the shuffle plan to move the data storage from the existing drives to the new storage, and then no date yet. This is an extremely complicated process, and I request that the Op Northmore personnel will be briefed and can observe, but should not interject or slow down proceedings. So if you pause there for a moment, as yet no date for when this shuffle plan, as it's described, will take place, so the migration from one set of servers to another. But what's being said is that whilst 2 members of the RMP Op Northmore team can be present, in effect it's a silent and watching brief.
That's right, yeah.
And what would be your response as an expert in the cyber field when you're being asked to remain silent and patiently observe a server migration when you're interested in preserving the integrity of the data?
Well, it's not acceptable, is it? And I remember at the time saying that, you know, if we see things happening, we're going to have to interject because you can't let you destroy data in front of us. So.
Can we look to the next bullet point, please? I've also instructed that the old storage is to remain viable for future exploitation by Op Northmore. I now need to confirm what exactly this means. We're working on a plan to remove and secure the old storage drives. These will then be available to Northmore to exploit in situ or externally as per options 1 and 2 in a previous email. The servers would be disposed of through CC1, and then Jim, perhaps you could give me a ring to confirm that this is forensically sound. And Jim is a reference to somebody else in the email, not to you, of course, because you are... I'm sorry, that is a reference to Casey Wright that she's written to, and that's a reference to you.
It is, yeah.
So asking you to ring, to speak with N2311. Can we then go, just to pick up the sequence, back one page, the reply to that email sent by you to N2311 on the 27th of September, just before 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so the same day, and we see that you have 2 points to make. And if we then look to the top of what is numbered page 9, for those who are able to follow it, and thank you, it's on the screen. I agree to some extent with the first point made about us not interfering. However, if there is a process that may destroy evidence, then we must be able to say stop. I do not expect this to be the case, just wanted to make the point. So that echoes what you said a moment ago about not being appropriate to simply stand there in silence. And then on the second point, I cannot provide an option from this distance on a proposed solution. My initial thoughts are that we will require the hardware which the HDD reside within until we have then made an assessment. Disposal is an area we can discuss if we require the hardware long term. I've not even set foot in the server room yet and had no technical feedback from UKSF4, so I'm at a disadvantage. So cautious potential agreement to the two options, but highlighting in the point of view of standing silently during the migration, that if there's a risk of any data being lost, you have to be able to say stop.
Exactly.
And is that because you as the investigating team are anxious to preserve the integrity of the data on ITS1?
That's it, exactly, yeah.
So in the event that any might be lost, would you have actually stopped the migration process?
Yes, we would have, yeah. If the, well, to put it into context, if I'd have been on site and they said they're going to run S-delete because they needed to move the data, I would have said, you're not running that, just to be clear.
Can we just look on in the sequence of emails? And in fact, it's easy if we look to page 6 within the numbered section that we're looking at. It's an email timed at 18:24 on the 27th of September. An email in response to yours. It's sent to you by N5958 and begins, okay, so now I have some alarm bells going off in my head that we may delay a critical migration plan that could have a serious impact to milestones and times that could end in a review for a cost given for an amount of money project. Hopefully it won't come to this, however. In order to mitigate, it is absolutely crucial that the Northmoor team get a full technical overview of the shuffle plan in order to fully understand the processes, in order that a red card doesn't come out during the process and stop something that could be contractually or indeed operationally critical to the success of the migration. What is set out there by N5958 is that it's crucial for the Op Northmoor team to get a full technical overview of the shuffle plan, so the migration from one server system to another. Can I ask you this? Were you given such a full technical overview of the migration plan?
No.
If there had been a full technical overview of this migration, would you have expected it to include applications or programs that might be run on the servers whilst the migration was going through?
That's a reasonable expectation.
For example, we're dealing, of course, with S-delete, which we know was run during the course of the migration. If you had been given a full technical overview of that plan, would you have expected someone to tell you about S-delete and what it might do to the data?
Well, I already know what it did, but yes, essentially in the plan it should have explained what they were trying to achieve and why they were deleting data and moving data around.
And again, it's hypothetical, so we've always got to be careful to judge with the benefit of hindsight. But can I ask you this? If you had had a full technical overview in which someone had mentioned running the S-delete application prior to the migration, what would your response have been?
I would have said not to do it.
And it may be obvious to everyone why not, but could you explain to us why you would have said not to do it?
Because it would have deleted the deleted data. And it would have changed the data in such a way which meant that it couldn't be recovered.
At any stage prior to S-delete having been run, did anyone tell you that they were planning to run that sort of tool or application as part of the migration process?
Never.
In terms of identifying possible dates, if we look on in the email that was sent to you towards the end of December by N5958, we can see, if we skip 2 paragraphs down, the migration starts in earnest on Monday, the 3rd of October.
Sorry, where are we?
My fault entirely. Still behind divider 24, looking back on page 6 where we were a moment ago.
Okay.
We'd read the top paragraph of that email that begins OK.
Yep, okay.
Paragraph 3, the migration starts in earnest on Monday, the 3rd of October. So initially, early in the summer, it had been suggested it was September. Now you're told the migration will begin on the 3rd of October. And then it's essential that the team be on site at 1600 hours, Monday, the 3rd of October, in order to receive a full shuffle plan brief from the project team headed up by N5859. And then the full migration of data will take up to 45 days to complete, with day 1 being Monday. This is why it is crucial that the team are here to receive a full brief in order to allay any of their concerns, but also ours, so they fully understand it. The team can then decide whether indeed they need someone to be here for the full 45 days. Questions over data exploit after the event can then be posed in order to give the team some direction in terms of what we do with the hard drives and servers. Can we continue in the email chain, please? If we go, if you wouldn't mind, to page 3. To an email sent from Captain Wright to N2311 on the 29th of September. And it references the email that we've just looked at. Please see our concerns and proposed courses of action. In order to prevent delay to the data migration process, it is not essential that the RMP technical staff be present on the 3rd of October, nor do they need to have oversight of the migration process as long as the following can be provided. RMP will require assurance that during the migration process that no data is changed, modified or deleted on the original storage. The precise technical detail can be discussed with the relevant subject matter experts, Mr. Pridden and N5859. Bullet point number 2.
I don't think I've got this email in the bundle.
My fault. Tab 24, the sequence of emails, and the bottom of the page will be a number 3.
Okay. Thank you.
So email of the 29th of September, an email from Captain Wright to N2311. So the RMP will require assurance that during the migration process no data is changed, modified or deleted on the original storage. Next bullet point. RMP will require assurance that when the original storage is presented to RMP, presumably 16th of November, this will include the whole data set, which includes all email communications and documentation set, inclusive of any backup files that exist in any format whatsoever, noting that these may not be on the storage system, but may exist in tape format. Upon receipt by RMP, the system should be live, powered on in its original state, so the data can be accessed by RMP technical staff. And then, due to operational reasons, the earliest RMP technician can visit will be Tuesday, 4th of October, and that includes yourself and Corporal Mills. This will only be to observe and understand the migration process and not hinder the task. This will assist the RMP in the development of a forensically sound data recovery process. So it would seem that what's being agreed by Captain Wright is that there's no need for anyone to be present as invited on day 1, but that's subject to certain undertakings being agreed that are set out in those bullet points. And do you recall whether you discussed some of these requirements with Captain Wright before he set them out to UKSF?
I can vaguely recall. I can remember, the point about the system being powered on was a point which we wanted to be 100% sure about, because we wanted the system live when we took it, so we knew it was working, and about, if they gave assurances that they weren't going to delete any data, because essentially all they were doing, to be perfectly blunt, they were just copying data from one place to another. It wasn't like it was something which was, I understand the hardware is slightly different, and I understand those the complexity of those issues. But never in my mind did I think that they were going to be doing something which they shouldn't have been doing.
Can we go back one page to page 2 within this sequence? Reminding ourselves that the 3rd of October was the start date. It had been indicated that it wasn't believed necessary for anyone to be present on the 3rd, subject to those assurances being given. And what had been indicated by Captain Wright was that the first time that anyone could attend from the RMP would be Tuesday, the 4th of October. And on the Monday, the 3rd, the day before anyone was due to attend, Captain Wright wrote to N2311, please could you let me know if Jim, that's you, and April Mills are expected tomorrow. Neither Jim or I have received confirmation as of yet. Also, are you able to provide the assurances listed on my email dated 29th of September? I would be keen to avoid any interruption or delay to your data migration process, but also cognizant of the evidential requirements I must adhere to. And then we can see the reply from N2311, which came the following day, the 4th of October, at 10:47 in the morning. Addressed to Captain Wright, Jason, apologies. They were expected and booked in, but we had failed to confirm that with Mr. P. I believe he is going to rearrange. Regarding the assurances, and then what has happened is the assurances which were sought have been copied into the body of the text by N2311 and responses given to them. So you'll recognise some of the words that had previously been identified in the email from Captain Wright. He had asked, RMP will require assurance that during the migration process that no data is changed, modified or deleted on the original storage. And the response to that provided by N2311, yes, we can provide this assurance. The next bullet point, as written by Captain Wright, RMP will require assurance that when the original storage is presented to RMP, this will include the whole data set, which includes all email communications and documentation set, inclusive of any backup files that exist in any format whatsoever. And N2311 wrote, yes, we can provide this assurance. And then, upon receipt by RMP, the system should be live so that the data can be accessed by RMP technical staff. And N2311 wrote, having discussed this in more detail with WO2 Pridden, we can make the following assurance. RMP will be present when the old storage is powered down. RMP will bag and tag the old storage. The extent of what needs to be retained for evidential purposes will be discussed at the pre-briefing. The evidence bags will then be stored until released to the RMP. I need to reiterate that while SFHQ UK is the information owner, the hardware is owned by Civilian Contractor 1, and discussions to retain it beyond the project life must involve that civilian contractor. So as at the 4th of October, just after 10:45 in the morning, N2311 on behalf of UKSF appears to give some assurances that have been sought by Captain Wright. In particular, the very first one being that during the migration process, no data will be changed, modified or deleted.
That's right.
As we keep the chronology going, and again, I'm sorry to keep going from tab to tab, but just having your help with one more, please. Can we look to divider number 25 and to the policy file note, which had been recorded at the end of September, just before that last email was received. Dated the 28th of September, in respect of the data recovery decision, Captain Wright wrote, data migration process has begun of the ITS-1 system. I remain of the view that we need to secure and preserve this relevant evidence. Previous assurance was provided by Colonel Morris that he would lead on correspondence with SFHQ UK to reach a decision that would see RMP recovering the whole system. Confirmation from Colonel Morris that he had not initiated comms with N1805, and then risk of not recovering ITS1 risks losing vital evidence in the N50 case and other matters. Not to do so could pose doubt into the independent, prompt and effective investigation. And the concerns that Captain Wright has identified, that the risk of not recovering ITS1 could have serious impact on the investigation itself, are those concerns that you shared?
Yes.
And are they concerns that you discussed with Captain Wright as the SIO?
Yes.
Can I take you back to your statement for a moment? And then we're going to need to look at some of the other tabs in the bundle. If we look, please, together to paragraph 19. You identify in paragraph 19 that there had been a stalemate for some time, and we obviously have seen the emails that were exchanged and the policy file reports that were recorded about the ongoing discussions and the fact there had been no final agreement. And you then record in paragraph 19 that the transition from the legacy system to the new system provided you, the RMP, with an opportunity, and that it was agreed that this would be the best way for you to get the data from ITS1. In other words, seize the old system and allow UKSF to continue to work with the new one. You then identify in paragraph 20 around November 2016, and just reminding you for a moment, we'd just been looking at email exchanges in early October, and it had been your understanding that there would be a 45-day time frame during which the migration would take place, beginning in October and therefore ending at some point in and around mid-November, if the projected 45 days was accurate.
That's right.
You identified in your statement that around November, they were supposed to have finished the transfer of data. And then you identified there was a lot of anxiety about them not communicating with us and not keeping us in the loop. Can I ask you, the they, is that a reference to UKSF?
Yes, it is.
And the anxiety, is that anxiety that the RMP had or that you personally had, or both?
It was, well, the whole team were concerned, well, not the whole team, that, you know, Captain Wright, myself, the leadership in the team driving the investigation were concerned that, you know, there's been a lot of toing and froing with UKSF, and you know, at one point they told us that we could have access to it, and then, like the conversation I had with them, and then at the next stage they're sort of saying, no, it's not been agreed, and then it's sort of, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, essentially. That's what the issue was. It felt like, and so yes, there was some anxiety because, you know, we were approaching that 45-day limit, and we didn't know. You know, we wanted to start making plans, that sort of thing, understanding where we're going to do, what we're going to do with it. That's prepping ourselves to actually, because it's quite a large data recovery, and we just had no comms from them. You know, we reached out, but there was nothing.
So you were reaching out to them, but getting nothing back?
Yeah.
Back to the exhibits for a moment. Can I ask you to look, please, behind divider 26? And you'll find there a set of minutes from the Op Northmore Silver meeting on the 29th of November. So we're now at a date beyond which you had expected the migration to have been completed. If we look within that document to what is numbered in the bottom, page 3 in the middle, or page 86 in the bottom right corner, and it's paragraph 20, and it's simply this. This is a meeting that took place on the 29th of November, and what's recorded here at entry 20, there was still no way forward in respect to ITS1 recovery, Deputy SIO for Team 1 explained that SFHQ UK would give an update on the 9th of December. So it would seem, if that entry is accurate, that as at the end of November, there was still going to be a further delay of 10 or so days, taking you to the 9th of December before there might be an update.
That's right.
Can we look together to divider 27, please? And divider 27 takes us to another policy file report. This is dated the 6th of December. So if what we've just seen was accurate, this is 3 days before an expected update might be received. Captain Wright is recorded on the 6th of December at 11:27 in the morning. Working from the assumption provided by Gold, Colonel Harvey, that ITS-1 migration will be complete on 8th December, I will be seeking to recover the system as a whole on this date. An agreement appears not to have been reached in respect of total recovery. I have in law the ability to recover ITS-1, and with the operational necessity removed, SFHQ UK data will be on a new server. The redundant original server can be recovered in evidence. I accept that, and then there's an undecipherable word, I accept that not been agreed between RMP and SFHQ UK, but the justification for not recovering, it should be into evidence, is less now the data will be migrated. Requested that Gold endorse my planned course of action. And then the reason provided: from the restricted view into ITS-1 provided from SFHQ UK using net reveal and being observed by SFH UK personnel, we know there is relevant material on it that relates to Team 1 investigations. Team 1, reminding ourselves, that is one of the 3 teams from up north, or on that team was tasked with looking into extrajudicial killing allegations. We must recover this material to progress the investigation in a diligent manner. Not to do so opens up the effectiveness of the investigation to question. And again, as described by Captain Wright there, his concerns that failure to recover ITS-1 in its entirety and what that might have as an impact on the investigation, did you share those concerns that he's voiced in this policy file report?
Yes, I did.
And were they concerns that you and he discussed?
Yes, there were.
And were they concerns that were shared by other members of the team?
Yes.
That took us, as we can see, from the 6th of December to a possible recovery date identified by Captain Wright as the 8th of December. And what I'd like to do now, please, is to invite you to look very briefly in your statement to paragraph 21. And when you've had a chance to read that, let me know, please.
Yes, I've read it.
Can I ask you this, please? When it came to trying to identify a date when it would be possible to get access to ITS-1, were you given any information by UKSF as to why there had been a delay in giving you that access?
They explained that it was an issue with copying the data across, and that they'd encountered some difficulties and it was taking additional time, and so they needed more time to finish the copy.
And in terms of discussions, if there were any ongoing between the RMP and UKSF, was that at your level and the Captain Wright level, or was that at a higher level?
That was with Captain Wright, me, and I'm just looking for their name. Which what's number 1? It's not, I think, identities. N2311.
So discussions between Captain Wright and N2311.
Yeah.
Back, if we may, to some of the exhibits, please. Can I take you first to divider number 29, if I may. Divider number 29 records a policy file report of the 16th of December. So if Captain Wright had been accurate when he'd identified the 8th of December as being the day he wanted to go and get ITS-1, we're now 8 days on from then. And at 3 minutes past in that afternoon, he records the following. Notification received from N2311 that RMP can have access to the ITS-1 dataset. Business resilience migration was ongoing and would continue until the end of January 17. In the meantime, RMP could attend and secure relevant areas on the server. These will be determined by us, but initially will only include obvious areas where data relevant to the inquiry resides. Phase 2 will see the full recovery, but this has not yet been agreed by Director Special Forces and Provost Marshal Army, again referencing in brackets, noting that we have the lawful authority to take it. WO2 Pridden, with a suitably qualified expert from 3C, will attend to assess the system, identify areas of immediate relevance, and plan on how we will recover this in evidence. No material will be taken away at this stage. 3C assets and Mr. Pridden to attend UKSF4 as soon as possible and before the Christmas leave period. And the reason recorded here on the 16th of December, with no agreement in place for me to secure and preserve the whole server, phase 1 is all we can achieve at this stage, and I'm keen to, and it must be, do this as soon as possible, given that I have been demanding access for some time. With the assessment of the system, the analysis of what material is there, and a plan on how to recover it, this will lay the ground for the time we are able to recover the whole ITS-1 system. So it would seem that as at the 16th of December, there is still no agreement permitting full recovery of the data held on ITS-1.
That's right.
But what Captain Wright has identified is that as at that date, the 16th of December, what's described as phase 1, in other words, identifying areas of relevant material could be set out, but that anyone who went, you, for example, wasn't going to be able to take anything away with you.
Essentially, it was a recce to try to understand, to get sight on what the server looked like, how big it was, and those sort of things, the information we've been asking for previously.
And in terms of that recce, is that the recce that you and Staff Sergeant Sivieri did on the 19th of December?
That's right, yeah.
Now, as far as the meeting on the 19th of December is concerned, was that at UKSF4? And I'm sorry, I've taken you by surprise when I've asked that. That was not particularly helpful of me, but you're already ahead of me. If you were to go back to the red file, if you look behind divider number 4.
Yes, it was. Yes,
thank you very much indeed. No, really? The meeting that took place at UKSF4, who was present at that meeting? And I'm not asking for names, but in terms of were there military personnel present on behalf of UKSF? Were there civilian individuals present? Or were there people you had no idea whether they were military or civilian?
There was Staff Sergeant Sivieri, obviously, with me, and there were some people in uniform, and there was some people in civilian clothes who he assumed to be contractors.
There had obviously been exchanges between Captain Wright and N2311, for example, someone that you had exchanged both telephone calls and emails with. Do you know whether N2311 was present? And again, if it helps you, red file behind divider number 1, you'll find, if you look down at the entry...
No, they weren't present.
Whilst you've got that page open, and again, I'm not asking you to read anyone's name out, please. If you look at the names, can you remember now whether any of the names and therefore the N numbers was present when you look at page 1?
couldn't be certain.
And could you look to page 2 and do the same exercise for me, again reminding you I don't want to know anything that's written in red, please. We've only been going around 10 minutes. So, 20 minutes from now.
No, I couldn't be certain.
Can we, I'm so sorry, you're still looking. I didn't mean to interrupt you. If you want to look again, please do so. I'm not going to rush you on the red file. If it helps you.
There's a nickname for somebody on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember what it is.
Well, please don't say it.
I know I won't.
If it's on the tip of your tongue, please get it off the tip of your tongue, and if necessary, to the tip of your pen. If you think there's a name that you can assist us with either now or later, can I ask you to write it down into the blue notebook you've got available beside you?
I think is it IIA8 may have been there. I recognise his name, but it may have been from email correspondence. I can't be certain.
All right. So IIA8, a possibility, but you can't be sure.
That's right, yeah. It might have been N5859 as well. But right now I can't. It's not coming to me.
Now, if we've understood what was set out in the policy file report recorded by Captain Wright 3 days before this meeting, it was expected to be some sort of recce by you and Staff Sergeant Sivieri where you might be able to identify areas on ITS1 that you had interest in.
Yeah, it was for us to assess how we're going to actually do it when it comes to take it and copy it, what we were going to do, what was the process going to be. So we needed to get hands-on or to actually see and understand what the hardware looks like.
Is that in fact what the meeting turned out to be?
No.
Right. As far as the meeting, can you describe to us the attitude, not yours and Staff Sergeant Sivieri, but the attitude of others towards you in the meeting? How did they seem?
It wasn't something I remembered until I had my statement taken, but I remember them being quite sheepish with us. Now, that's a general reaction, to be fair to them. When, we come in and take computer systems away, there was sometimes people aren't laughing and joking when we turn up, let me put it that way. But it did feel a little bit odd that they had something to tell us, and they did have something to tell us, obviously.
And what was it that they had to tell you, please, Mr. Pridden?
Well, they were just talking through the process of what they did, and one of the things we said, oh, you've had problems, and obviously you needed the delay for the last 3 weeks. And they were like, yeah, we couldn't move the data from one to the other because it kept corrupting, and so we needed to get a clean transfer. So we had to run this program called deletion across the computer systems to make sure we could move the data.
So just pausing there for a moment. They described to you difficulties in moving or copying the data from one set of servers to the new servers. Did they give you any idea when those problems had arisen? Are these problems that were some weeks or months ago, or problems in the last few days, or can you not remember?
No, I asked them, I said, obviously we were aware of the 3-week delay that we've been asked to give them. And so when they turned up, I said, you had problems then moving it. What were your problems? And they described to me what the issues were and what they did. That was that. It was they had to run this delete program to fix the problem that they had during those 3 weeks to get it to work.
And the 3 weeks were the 3 weeks prior to the meeting on the 19th of December?
That's right, yeah.
So when you asked them about the problem, about the moving of the data, they explained it was a problem with copying it from one server to another.
Well, they do what's basically a clone of the data across, and on the technology stack they were using, there were problems with moving the data. It just kept on corrupting. It gives you the hardware will give you a reading saying it's 100% complete or whatever, and they weren't getting a full reading on what they were getting. So they had to clean the data up before they moved it.
And you told us that they told you in that meeting on the 19th that they had run S-delete as part of the transfer.
That's right, yeah.
And why did they tell you they needed to run S-delete as part of the transfer? Because,
well, the way data is stored on a hard drive, it's fragmented. And when you're moving data in large bulk lots, that can cause corruption. So by running S-delete, what you do is you clean out all of the deleted data because you don't want to move that. And the process they would have been doing would be of moving the deleted data. So they cleaned out the deleted data because they didn't need to move that because they only wanted the live stuff. And then also S-delete puts the data in what's called a contiguous format, which means the data is written to disk in a sequential manner, as opposed to it being fragmented all over the place. And that makes it easier to move when you move it on a system, one system to the next.
were you surprised to be told that they had run S-delete in the last 3 weeks as part of the data migration process?
Yes.
Again, it may be an obvious question, but why was it that you were surprised to find out on the 19th of December that it had been run?
Because it removes the opportunity to forensically recover any data that's been deleted. And, you know, if I wanted to delete some data off a computer and move it somewhere else, so no one would find that data, that's the process you would do.
Did you understand how S-delete worked before going into that meeting with them?
Yes, I've used it myself. We in the Cyber Crime Centre in the Royal Military Police, we deal a lot of child abuse imagery cases, and there's a requirement in those cases to clean hard drives to give back to people on occasion. And so we have used S-delete to do that cleansing, so it makes that abusive image impossible to recover.
Now, that deals with images, for example, and you've identified child abuse images, but are there tools, albeit perhaps at a sophisticated level, that people can deploy in order to recover data that has been subjected to S-delete?
Well, I would say if you had an electron microscope and it was something that you wanted to do, anything's possible in regards to that sort of realm of data recovery. However, the size and technically it's possible, I would say, but you'd need huge amounts of resources to actually do it, and actually doing it is in reality impossible. So there are white papers out there where people have done that sort of thing for small bits of data, but when we're talking about huge amounts of data, it's not actually possible because of the effort that we required.
Just thinking about the problem that they were presented with, and as they've explained to you, the difficulty with cloning and getting the information from one server to the other, rather than running S-delete to facilitate that transfer, were you aware of alternative applications or programs that could have been run that might have done the same for them without deleting data?
Well, I've never actually got hands on the hardware or seen the hardware they were using, but there's always an alternative option. If that option is probably the easiest option for them to use to get it done. However, there are other options, I would imagine, but without knowing the technology stack exactly what it is, they could have backed the data up to tape somewhere else and then moved it from tape and to the new storage area because they were only interested in live data. Why didn't they use a third-party medium to do it? I don't know.
Now, you've explained to us that your recollection of the meeting back in December of 2016 was that you'd been told that this was a problem that had happened in the last 3 weeks and therefore a programme that had been run in those 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Is it possible that you were told that S-Delete had in fact been run much earlier than that, for example, in the summer?
Never. If they'd have told me that, I would have straight away said, why are you deleting data?
Is it possible at that meeting in December that you were told that S-Delete had been run much earlier than the last 3 weeks?
No, it was specifically around, I asked the question because, to be honest, it was the start of the meeting and I was making small talk, and I just said to them, hey, you've been having issues, what were the issues? And they went into to explain to me and came out with it straight away.
And again, this might strike at your expertise, and it's not meant to be a slight at you, but just I want to understand the extent of your expertise. When we're talking about taking a forensic copy of a number of drives that comprise the server and the ITS-1 system, did you have the expertise and the knowledge to take a forensic copy from something as large as that? Was that within your skill set?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I've done it many times before. Our team ran another investigation very similar to Northmore, which involved a large amount of hard drives where we recovered for another operation in the UK.
So if UKSF had given you access to ITS-1, your understanding based on your knowledge is you believe you could have taken a forensic copy from it?
This is what I do for my job, 100%.
And this may be an impossible question to ask, so forgive my ignorance when I ask it, but it's this. Are you able to give us any idea of how long it might have taken for a forensic copy to be made? I recognise, of course, you'd only had a whistle-stop tour of what might be on ITS-1.
I've never actually seen the hardware, so I don't even know how many disks are involved and the hardware involved. Each piece of hardware does have its peculiarities and problems to overcome, but it's common for IT administrators not to understand our role in data recovery because it's a specialist role.
Having been told what had happened over the last 3 weeks, and in particular told that S-Delete had been run, what, if anything, was your reaction to those who were in the meeting with you?
Well, I sort of pointed out why, I was a bit surprised and asked them why they'd run it again, and they explained. And what happened next? I think we had a discussion about data size and things like that, but in my mind, it was, they'd done something which has completely destroyed data, and I needed to go and tell the SIO about that because it was a significant point. And so I think we ended the meeting early, and we took some details about the server infrastructure and then left.
Can I just ask you this before we leave that meeting? Did you or Staff Sergeant Sivieri ask whether it was possible to run some sort of undelete on the data to try to recover that which had been deleted?
No, there'd be no reason to do that because the S-Delete basically writes zeros over all of the data. There's no way of recovering it without using some sort of method, like an electron microscope or something like that.
And again, just checking the extent of your knowledge of S-Delete, and it's not meant to be an exam question, but it is a genuine question so that we understand it. As far as you were aware, did S-Delete affect any data or a particular type of data on a server?
It only it deletes deleted data. So data which has already been deleted, but is still resident on the hard disk drive, the sectors of the hard disk drive. The bits, if you like, of the hard disk drive, the bits and the bytes. But it also reorders the data which is live on the system, so it's contiguous. So it does two jobs.
And then before we leave that meeting, finally this. I think you've said you've never seen the hardware, but can I check, did anyone show you any of the hardware at that meeting on the 19th?
No, we didn't go to the server room.
Were you ever shown to the server room?
No. They were very protective over letting us having access.
Now, you mentioned, before I asked some questions and interrupted your flow, that you spoke to Captain Wright after the meeting had ended. You said you'd ended the meeting early. When you spoke to Captain Wright, did you provide him with the information you had just learned from your meeting between the military and civilian individuals at UKSF4?
Yes, I told him that they'd deleted data. So they'd erased deleted data, if you like. That's better terminology.
At that stage, what, if anything, did you think should happen in light of what had happened to ITS-1?
Well, the options I gave to Captain Wright was, 1, do nothing. 2, recover the system and investigate what's happened, because is this malicious or not? And 3, we still need to recover ITS-1 because it's still got the live data on there. So although the deleted data was removed, the live data was still there, which still could have been useful for the investigation.
Can I invite you to look at another document, please,
Yes,
still
sure.
within your exhibits? It's behind divider number 28. And can we ignore the date for a moment, please? Can we look first to the body of what is written by Captain Wright? Again, the decision relates to data recovery. Notification from Jim Pridden that it appears that SFHQ UK have deleted material from the preserved ITS-1 server. The deletion process has been conducted in such a way that it is irreversible and impossible to determine what has been deleted. This is in direct disobedience to our demands to preserve data in its entirety and SFHQ UK's agreement that they would do so. This is either unintentional and caused by error communication breakdown within SFHQ UK, or an intentional act to prevent RMP from accessing that data. Gold, that's Lieutenant Colonel Harvey, informed immediately. Courses of action suggested to Gold for him to direct upon: A, do nothing, accept deletion and recover remaining data, no action being taken against those responsible. B, pursue an offence of perverting the course of public justice or an intentional effort to prevent RMP access to relevant material. C, demand an internal investigation by SFHQ UK to identify what has occurred. Above courses of action are in response to the deletion of potential evidence which is now beyond the grasp of the investigation. Previous rationale for the non-recovery was made as SFHQ UK had articulated that in order for RMP to recover the live system, this could jeopardise ongoing operations and present a risk to life. Beyond migration of that live data, this rationale ceased and full recovery was intended. Either people responsible are held to task or permitted to go unchecked. This is a matter for Gold. Irrespective of remedial investigative is still required. Gold is still deciding on what action to take in both inquiring what occurred and also regarding the original task of data evidence recovery. I am not empowered as the SIO to make this decision. It is Gold's direction that I am to follow. So that entry appears to be following the notification from you imparting to Captain Wright the detail that you've been provided on the 19th of December. The reason why I didn't take you to the date was this. If we look at the date that is recorded in this file report, we can see the date and time here is the 12th of December, 18 minutes past 3 in the afternoon. So if your recollection about the date being the 19th of December is correct, it appears the date recorded here is incorrect.
I think when I had my statement taken, we did bring a calendar up and we were looking at dates, and we were trying to work out which Friday it was, because I think it was a Friday. I assumed it was the last Friday for everyone broke up for Christmas, but I may be wrong in my statement, I don't know.
Before you concede that you're wrong, can I just check whether that's the right concession to make?
Okay.
And I'm trying to help, and I'll do my very best. Go back, if you will, to divider 29. And the reason for taking you to that is there's a policy file report that we've already looked at for the 16th of December. And as at the 16th of December, what Captain Wright has recorded is there's notification received from N2311 that the RMP can have access to the ITS1 dataset. And that's the precursor to the recce meeting that you believed happened on the 19th of December.
Okay.
So a date is wrong somewhere here.
Yeah.
Either the note of the 16th of December, which is the precursor to your recce on the 19th, are both correct, and the date for the 12th of December is wrong. The date for the 12th of December is right, and the 16th of December and your recollection of the 19th are wrong, or it's all wrong and we've got no idea where we are in December. Now, I'm not going to invite you to guess on an answer to either of those, but before you concede that you're wrong, can you at least agree with this? There appears to be a confusion in the dates in between the 12th and the 19th of December.
It does, yeah. And I do remember it was very close to Christmas because we wanted to deploy in a team of 2, and I think Sivieri was on leave during that period, and he wasn't happy about having to, he complained the whole way there about having to come off leave to do the job. And so
we're all familiar with that, I can assure you.
So
I've been told that I've been going on for far too long and that, in fact, the stenographer needs a break, and I'm very sorry for that. I've got a little bit more to deal with. Can I check, in the event we needed you to come back tomorrow, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, would that be possible? If it isn't, you must say so now, and we'll make other arrangements for other witnesses, but I'm trying to juggle a lot of evidence at the same time.
there's train strikes tomorrow. It's
Right. We'll deal with matters. You're in the witness box and you'll remain in the witness box then, sir. Can I ask for a break for the stenographer, please? And it will still mean I can finish your evidence this afternoon.
okay.
Can indeed. We'll take a 15-minute break, please, till 10 past 4 for the stenographer. Can I remind you, Mr. Pridden, not to discuss your evidence with anybody, and you'll be escorted back to your room.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
All rise.
And I gather, Mr. Glasgow, the plan is to finish Mr. Pridden and then reconvene tomorrow morning. Is that right?
That is the plan, sir. Yes, thank you very much.
Good.
Mr. Pridden.
So the good news, Mr. Pridden, we'll sit to finish you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Pridden, where we'd left things before the break was we were somewhere in December in 2016, but we're not quite sure where. We can, I think, identify the date with a bit more accuracy, and I'll take you to yet another document in a moment. But can I try to continue the chronology with you and your evidence before we just tidy up that bit? You've explained to us what you were told at the meeting in December, what you then explained to Captain Wright in the phone call. In addition to the phone call you had with Captain Wright, did you set anything out to him in writing?
Yeah, I think I did send him an email. I don't think it was the same day because it was a long drive back. But it might have been the next day, or it might have been the following week because it was a Friday. I can't remember exactly when it was.
And we've seen, of course, that he identifies in one of his policy reports 3 possible courses of action, which echoed what you told us before we even looked at that document. As you'd said, in and around this time, people are on holiday. Indeed, Staff Sergeant Sivieri was himself due to be on holiday. So did you take time off towards the festive period in December?
Yes, I would have, yes.
Insofar as any decision that was taken as to which of the 3 courses of action to pursue, do you know whether that had been taken by the time you came back in January?
So I was coming to the end of my military career, and actually I went on resettlement at the end of January. So in January, I'm sort of handing over to Staff Sivieri, and obviously working to any sort of immediate things which the SAO needed, but I was winding down essentially.
Just in as far as the course of action that was decided, can we just look at some documents together and to have your help whilst we've got you? And it may be that you can better explain them to us. Can I take you back in the bundle to behind divider 21? And it's possibly to the 3rd page, if the computer file works the same way, but it's the 2nd of the policy file reports within that divider. So behind tab 21, that's the one, thank you very much indeed. And what we're looking at here is a dated entry for the 12th of January of 2017, again in respect of data recovery, identifying that it's in respect of ITS1 and it's another Captain Wright policy file entry. Notified by N2311, SOI Info Coherence at SF HQ UK, that she'd attended the meeting with Gold and N1805 in which it had been agreed that SF HQ UK would conduct their own investigation into what had occurred, leading to the deletion of potential evidence on ITS1. No discussion had been conducted regarding the recovery of the remaining data. This is an essential requirement to progress the investigation, awaiting Gold's feedback. And then the reason recorded, I was not present at the meeting, but had articulated my, and that's probably view or opinion, regarding the securing, preserving and recovery of ITS1, together with detailed rationale. The content of the SFHQ UK investigation will hopefully be shared with Northmoor, but this is a matter for Gold as how this will be taken forward. So it would appear, if the date is correct, that as at the 12th of January of 2017, an agreement had been reached that it would be the UKSF who would run an internal investigation into the use of S-delete on the ITS1 server. And that, of course, was one of the options that you'd mentioned and one of the 3 options that Captain Wright had identified as possible courses of action for Gold Colonel Harvey to follow. So that would see the UKSF conducting their own investigation into what they had done with the running of the S-delete application.
Yep.
Can we leave divider 21 for a moment? Can we look, please, on a little in the chronology, this time to tab 31. Tab 31 has a number of entries in it, and I'm afraid it's a little difficult to find your way through it, and I'm sorry that there's so much information in there, but if you scroll through it, Mr. Pridden, you will, and I'm not going to attempt to guess a page number because I don't know whether yours are double-sided or not, or whether you indeed have the same pages in the order I've got them. But if you run your finger through it and look, you should find, as at the 20th of January, a document entitled Implications of the Delay to the Forensic Recovery of the ITS-1 Server. It may be about 6 pieces of paper through. And I'll allow everyone to catch up since I knew where I was looking.
It's page 59 in my copy.
59 in the bottom right corner, yes. Thank you, sir. And this was a note written by Captain Wright, the Senior Investigating Officer for Team 1, and dated on the 20th of January. He identifies in paragraph 2, if we look to it, SFHQ UK raised concerns that full recovery of the ITS-1 server is not proportionate as it holds third-party equity together with operational material not relevant to Northmore inquiries. SFHQ UK are unable to identify where relevant data resides on the ITS-1 server. Full recovery is the only course of action to provide for an effective investigation. To do anything short of this risks not capturing key evidence. So that essentially is the background, or part of the background, to the note being provided by Captain Wright. And then what he terms loss of evidence sets out the following paragraph, numbered 3. In lieu of full recovery, as highlighted in paragraph 1, RMP directed that SFHQ UK were not to delete, amend, move, or otherwise alter any of the data on the ITS-1 server. SFHQ UK provided written assurance of this. On the 19th of December, and it may well be therefore that you were right, on the 19th of December, following scheduled and complete migration of the ITS-1 data to a more modern system, Northmore technical staff attended the SFHQ UK subunit location where ITS-1 is held and identified that in the 2 weeks preceding the visit, data had been permanently deleted. Due to the method of deletion, it is not possible to identify what has been removed. SO1 Northmore has agreed that SFHQ UK should conduct an internal review to determine why the data has been deleted, contrary to direction by RMP, and in direct conflict with their own assurances. So, pausing for a moment, we can see that if this note is correct, you were right about the date being the 19th of December, and it seems that the policy log dated the 12th of December must be wrong, and it may well be that it should have been the 21st of December rather than the 12th, and it's simply an error. But we'll obviously investigate that to try to get to the bottom of it. But what we can see here is that what has been identified by Captain Wright is exactly what you've told us, that on the 19th of December there had been a meeting attended by Northmore technical staff, you being one of them, and that there had been deletion of data leading to permanent deletion that had been run, here it's recorded, in the 2 weeks preceding the visit. And it identifies also that it's been agreed that SFHQ UK should conduct an internal review to determine why data has been deleted, contrary to the assurances that have been given. Okay? And we can see that in addition to identifying the background and then the loss of evidence point, Captain Wright notes lessons and sets the following out in paragraph 4. To delay the recovery of ITS-1 creates significant risks to the evidential integrity of data created pertaining to operations in Afghanistan. Digital evidence, by design, is susceptible to deletion of data from both routine use and targeted deletion by individuals who may wish to conceal facts. To delay any longer further exposes risks to loss of data beyond recovery. And then he cites various reports and other anecdotal evidence, which I'm not going to take you through. Can we just consider what is set out in paragraph 4 in the first of the lessons that potentially can be learned from the delay in forensic recovery? And again, it may be that this chimes with some of what you have told us already and some of the concerns you've outlined to us. What Captain Wright has set out there is that the delay creates significant risks to the evidential integrity of data relating to operations in Afghanistan. And do you share his sentiment there that the delay in recovery of ATS-1 does just that, creates significant risks to the integrity of the information on it?
Yeah, 100%.
And is that because each time you wait a little bit longer, it makes it that much harder to work out what is or has been removed from that particular server or servers?
That's exactly that, yeah.
And that may be through system error, it may be through user error, and it may be, as Captain Wright has set out here, from targeted deletion by individuals who may wish to conceal facts.
That's correct.
I'm not going to ask you to voice an opinion on any of those, but it may be that investigations will lead to one course or another being identified as to why data has been removed. It may be that one can never find out why data was removed.
I fully agree. It's
Can we just look over the page together, and can we look to recommendations numbered 8? Thank you very much. It's recommended that the Northmoor team recover the ITS-1 server immediately in order to comply with best practice and guidance provided by MPID and ACPO, and taking into consideration the risk posed to the original data, along with our ability to recreate and interpret that data. Under Section 95 of the Armed Forces Act, and I'll wait for the screen to come back to life. Thank you. Under Section 95 of the Armed Forces Act, RMP have the lawful authority to do so. Beyond this, a judicial officer can be requested to make an order to enable RMP to do so. Any delay in recovery risks the loss of evidence and the ability to conduct a prompt and effective investigation, leaving the inquiry and RMP open to criticism. And again, your answer may be obvious in light of what you've already told us. But do we see here the concerns being highlighted by Captain Wright that delay in recovery has the risk of causing serious problems down the line?
well, obviously.
And is that something with which you agree?
Yes, 100%.
And I appreciate that at this stage you were either away from the RMP or winding down in your time with the RMP. But insofar as Captain Wright had that view in mind, is that something that you and he had discussed together?
Yeah, we discussed the options about what we should do next. Obviously, and you know, whenever you do that sort of process, the do nothing option is always the first one, which you never really consider to do. And then it moves on from there. So, you know, I believe the right course of action would have been to recover it so we could do an investigation to understand when S-delete was run and all of those other facts as well.
And to be clear, this was 15 months after you first identified ITS-1 as something that the RMP and you wanted to recover.
It is, yeah.
15 months.
Yes.
Again, it may be difficult for you to answer this, but in terms of the investigation which it appears has been agreed to be conducted internally, if you were given the choice, would you have preferred an RMP-led investigation into what had happened, or an internal investigation at unit level as to what had happened?
Well, I remember discussing at the time with Captain Wright that people are going to think it's a cover-up. And here we are today. You know, we did say that the best course of action would be for us to, you know, investigate that server to see exactly what had happened. But the decision was made not to do it. So,
can I take you to one final document, please, Mr. Pridden? And it takes us to the last of the sequence of tabs in your file. So it's divider number 31. We're still in it. Can I take you on, please, first to page 63? And we're going to look at a series of emails. It's only 3 emails, I think. But can we look at those together? Because they span both the date just before and then dates after the note written by Captain Wright we've just looked at. So within the tab we were in, starting at page 63, if we may. So bottom right corner. Do you have page 63 there?
yes.
And if you look to the bottom of the page, and we've got it on the screen here, there is an email sent from Major Harvey to others within the Northmoor team. And it reads as follows. Colonel, the meeting with N1805 and N2311 went well yesterday. Course of actions as a result are as follows. UKSF4 will do an internal look at what went wrong and why data was deleted. On completion, he will provide a statement and report to Op Northmoor. And then over the page to complete the last 3 actions, I've asked for a round table with their service technicians, the Civilian Contractor 1, our cyber experts, together with N1805 and N2311, and me, brackets Jason, that's Jason Wright, you should also attend, date to be confirmed. And then 3, Director Special Forces letter to Provost Marshal Army will follow. So the information being given as at the 13th of January is that there had been a meeting on the 12th of January between certainly the Gold Commander and N1805 and N2311, at which it had been decided that UKSF4 would lead the internal investigation. Can we look up the sequence of the emails? Because in reply to that email, later that same day at 14:07, Captain Wright replied, Colonel, thank you. And we're now looking to the top of page 63, and I'll allow everyone to catch up. So the email at the top we see there, thank you very much indeed. Colonel, thank you. Did SFHQ UK agree to release the entirety of ITS-1 to Northmoor? So if we pause for a moment, it would appear, if that question is correct, that as at certainly the 13th of January, the Senior Investigating Officer, Captain Wright's understanding was that there hadn't yet been an agreement to release the entirety of the data that RMP had been asking for since at least October of 2015.
That's right, yeah.
If I may, given that migration has been completed, the operational justification has gone away. If third-party equity remains an issue, I would seek to understand in advance of any future meeting who owns that material, what it consists of, and how much third-party material exists. If the argument is one of collateral intrusion into non-Afghanistan-based operations, the robust triage process already agreed mitigates any leak of information. Simply, if we are to search for relevant data on ITS-1, we will need to search the entire system. I believe Jim Pridden has explained the detail. For my own understanding and regarding the outcomes bullet 1, that refers to the internal look that's been set out in the previous email, Do you anticipate a Royal Military Police investigation into these matters? The answer will determine how we proceed in the immediate future with those who were involved in this process. I would be keen to avoid any unnecessary contact with potential suspects. And then for completeness, what do you anticipate the topics for consideration to be on bullet 2? Also, it would be ideal if this were before the 1st of February, prior to Jim's departure. For continuity, I would recommend that his replacement be identified and is also in attendance. And then what do you anticipate the SFHQ UK RMP letter to include? Is this in relation to the deletion of data or concerning the recovery of ITS-1? The reply to that from the Gold Commander, John Harvey, is set out on page 62. And it's brief but to the point. Jason, we can discuss when I am down on 24th January. And we can see that that was sent by Gold on the 23rd of January, clearly inviting a discussion to take place the following day. If we turn back to page 61 for a moment, the following day, as in the day after that meeting, so the 25th of January, Captain Wright wrote an email to the Gold Commander, John Harvey, in the following terms. And it begins at the bottom of page 61. Timed at 1720 on the 25th of January, Colonel, to confirm our chat today and to better manage my team. And then over the page, please, if we may, to the top of page 62, and thank you very much indeed, it's already there. I am to take no action in respect of data recovery from ITS-1 until after the meeting highlighted at bullet 2 below, a date for which has not been arranged. You are engaging with N1805 to arrange. I am to take no action in respect of the deletion of data from the ITS-1 server. This will be an internal investigation by UKSF4 only. Provost Marshal Army has written to Director Special Forces, but to date no response has been received. The IRT findings will be forwarded to PMA for consideration, but no direction regarding proposed tactics is anticipated until after this time, likely to be week 3 or 4 in February 17. I am to take no action in respect of suspect witness engagement for the N50 matters until after the next Gold Group meeting. No replacement has been identified for WO2 Pridden, noting that upon his departure several key cyber tasks will be halted. Then N1125 is likely to be in place for April 17, and no response has been received from LDC in respect to the request for further material and anticipated replies for February 17. Now, as to the summary of the meeting that had taken place on that day, the 25th of January, in response to that summary, Gold gave the following reply. And if we go back, please, to page 61, they're just some of those that I'd like to pick out with your help. On the 27th of January, so still before you finally left your time at the RMP, Gold Commander wrote back to the Senior Investigating Officer, Captain Wright, and in respect to the first bullet point, which was asked, I am to take no action in respect of data recovery from ITS-1 until after the meeting highlighted at bullet 2 below, a date for which has not been arranged. The response is yes, correct. So what was being said by the Gold Commander to the Senior Investigating Officer was, at the moment, as at the 27th of January of 2017, he, the Senior Investigating Officer, was still to take no steps towards the recovery of ITS-1.
Correct.
And then to the second bullet point, I'm to take no action in respect to the deletion of data from the ITS-1 server. This will be an internal investigation by UKSF4 only. And the simple response is correct. So what the SIO was being told by the Gold Commander was that this would be an internal unit level investigation, and that the RMP were not to embark on their own inquiries as to what had been deleted, who had done the deletion, or why that had happened.
That looks correct here.
And then the last one that's relevant to what we've been discussing over the course of your evidence today, that third bullet point, Provost Marshal Army has written to Director Special Forces to date, but to date no response has been received. And what was set out there is correct. There's been no response from Director Special Forces personally. As far as you are aware, prior to your departure from the RMP, had there been any success in obtaining ITS-1 or the data from it?
No.
Had there been any successful seizing of any of the backups of ITS-1 at any stage for any backup that had taken place?
I'm aware that we work quite closely with IHAT, and they did have a backup at some stage, but from memory, we looked at that and it was useless.
So in terms of having a useful backup,
Yeah.
is the answer to that no, there wasn't one?
Yes.
As at the date of your departure?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
So can I just check something? I apologise. So no, I've nothing further for Mr. Pridden. I don't know if you have any questions for him, sir.
I don't. Thank you, Mr. Glasgow. Mr. Pridden, can I thank you very much indeed for coming to give your evidence. You're free to go.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So can I indicate before you get out of your seat you're not yet free to go? So could I detain you for a moment longer, please, whilst Mr. Pridden leaves?
Indeed, of course.
In order to make the best use of time tomorrow, since we need to get through quite a bit of evidence in a relatively short period of time, there is a matter that Mr. Polney wishes to deal with, and it may be that there's a short statement to be read. It will mean if we can use a few minutes now, we can guarantee a clean start tomorrow morning at 10 with the witness.
Indeed.
Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Polney.
So you'll be aware we're running just one witness behind the timetable at the moment, which has caused a few issues, none of them insuperable. And the witness tomorrow is going to be, the first witness will be N5858, who carries out an internal investigation. However, for his evidence to make sense in the chronology, or at least to make more sense, if I can put it that way, if it's convenient to the court, and I appreciate it's unattractive at this time of the day, there could just be one statement and one exhibit that was read into the record, which would then set the scene for him to start a clean start tomorrow, if I may.
Indeed. Would you like it formally to be read into the record, or can simply be put on the
For these ones, I would ask they're formally read because of their importance. There's others that can be entered into the record. And I'm going to ask, with your permission, sir, that Ms. Iyer reads out the statement of N1805 and the associated exhibit, which you'll find at tabs 41 and 42 in your bundle.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm grateful. As per Mr. Polney, this is the witness statement of N1805 that can be found at tab 41 of the bundle. I would ask that this is formally entered into the record, and I read it into the record now. I, N1805, am making this witness statement in response to paragraph 4 of the second Rule 9 request to the Ministry of Defence, which was issued on the 21st of March 2023, and concerns a request for evidence about the ITS-1 server and other servers. Specifically, paragraph 4 requests a statement from N1805 setting out his recollection as to what was said at a meeting with Gold Commander of Operation Northmoor, where the deletion of the server was discussed. He should produce as an exhibit any record or note he made of the meeting. If he did not make a note, he should set out in the statement why no note was taken. I confirm I am the person to whom nominal N1805 was ascribed for the purposes of the Operation Northmoor investigation. By way of background, I joined the British Army in 1986. I undertook a role with UK Special Forces between 1991 and 1994, although I am not a UKSF individual. Between 2006 and 2011, I held a number of roles within the Special Forces Headquarters UK at the rank of OF4 and OF5. Between 2011 and 2013, I held a non-Special Forces role in the Ministry of Defence. Between 2015 and 2018, I was Assistant Chief of Staff J1, J4 at the Special Forces Headquarters UK at the rank of OF5. In that role, I was OF4 N2311's line manager. As set out above, I am asked to set out my recollection as to what was said at a meeting with Gold Commander of Operation Northmoor, where the deletion of the server was discussed. I understand that the relevant meeting was held on the 12th of January 2017 at Ward Barracks, Bulford, Wiltshire, at the request of the Royal Military Police. I have little memory of the meeting. My recollection is that the meeting was attended by the following persons: OF4 N2311, who at that time was SO1 Information Coherence, located at SFHQ UK, OF3 N2369, who was an army lawyer who worked within SFHQ UK, another person whose name I cannot recall, but who I believe had relevant IT expertise. I can't specifically remember whether Colonel Rob Morris, on behalf of the RMP, was in attendance at the meeting, but I do recall having met him that morning. In any case, I do recall there were a few individuals from the RMP there. I knew Colonel Morris relatively well, as we had meetings every 3 to 6 months in relation to a number of investigations, and we had a good working relationship. Lieutenant Colonel John Harvey, on behalf of the RMP. As far as I can recall, the background to this meeting was that there had been ongoing discussions between SFHQ UK and the RMP regarding the RMP obtaining a copy of the ITS-1 information system. This RMP request was considered to give rise to operational and security concerns, not least because ITS-1 was a live system which provided a critical operational capability in support of live and ongoing operations. The position was also complicated by the fact there was a pre-planned data migration exercise due to take place in 2016. My recollection is that by the end of 2016, a satisfactory means of the RMP obtaining access to ITS-1 had not been agreed. My recollection is that at the meeting on the 12th of January 2017, Lieutenant Colonel Harvey told those present that an amount of data had been lost during the course of data being transferred between computer systems, the data migration exercise referred to above, and that there was a suspicion that material pertinent to Operation Northmoor had been deliberately deleted. Lieutenant Colonel Harvey queried whether that deletion could be justified. For the avoidance of doubt, there was no suggestion that a server had been deleted. The issue that was raised was whether some data may have been deleted during the course of data being transferred onto a newer data storage system. To the best of my recollection, the focus of the meeting was on the need to understand what had in fact happened. The meeting resulted in the agreement that we would carry out an internal investigation in SFHQ UK to determine what had happened. As a result of this meeting, I asked OF3 N2369 to prepare a note setting out the need for the internal investigation. I have been shown a copy of a note dated the 16th of January 2017, produced by OF3 N2369, which bears the reference SFHQ UK/ALS/FileRef for the purposes of preparing this witness statement. I confirm that this is a copy of the note which was produced by OF3 N2369 as a result of the meeting with the RMP on the 12th of January 2017. The fact that the relevant meeting with the RMP took place on the 12th of January 2017 is referred to at the beginning of this note, I exhibit a copy of that note as Exhibit N1805/1. I am now aware that the internal investigation was subsequently carried out by OF2 N5858 of UKSF4, who set out his findings in a report that was provided to the RMP. I do not believe I took a note of the relevant meeting on the 12th of January 2017, given this was a meeting chaired by the RMP. Secondly, minutes would follow, and the key action point for me was very clear, namely discover the cause of the data loss. Given we were often discussing sensitive matters, it was difficult to make a written record without producing a document that had a high security classification. Sir, that's the first document. The second document is the exhibit that was referred to in that statement, and that's at tab 42.
Yes.
The heading of that document is metadata loss, and I would ask that it's formally entered into the record. It reads as follows. References A, email WO2 Pridden, Captain Wright, dated the 20th of December 2016, and B, meeting at Ward Barracks, Bulford, 12th of January 2017. At reference A, it was identified that a contractor working for UKSF4 had caused a metadata loss from ITS1 by running a program called sdelete across the old data storage area. This was further discussed at reference B. The deleted metadata includes information that related to operations in Afghanistan, which Operation Northmoor is currently investigating. Lieutenant Colonel Harvey, Gold Commander Op Northmoor, has indicated that the police are not intending to formally investigate the matter. However, they would require a statement explaining how and why the metadata was removed from the system. On the 19th of December 2016, during a meeting between the Op Northmoor team and the contractors, it was disclosed that a program known as sdelete had been run across the old data storage area. Sdelete is a secure data deletion tool for data which is already deleted but still recoverable on the storage area. As a result, a substantial amount of metadata was deleted. The service police requires a unit investigation to be undertaken to consider how and why the sdelete application was applied to the system. Legal advice. I advise that the CO UKSF4 commission a unit investigation into the events surrounding the removal of the metadata. A statement should be obtained from the appropriate individual who instructed the contractor to conduct the activity on the server, and an explanation of what the contractor was required to do. Furthermore, an explanation of how and why the information was deleted from the system should be obtained. If the contractor is still employed by UKSF4, she or he should also be approached and asked if they are prepared to provide a statement explaining the events and their actions. It should be noted that a contractor is not subject to service law and therefore cannot be compelled to provide a statement. Once the unit investigation is complete, the report should be passed to this office for further advice. It is likely that on completion of the unit investigation, the service police will require a formal statement detailing the event and actions surrounding the removal of the metadata. The formal statement needs to be recorded so as to provide an explanation to the court should the issue arise in any future proceedings. Please do not hesitate to contact me should you require further information or have any questions. And that's signed, sir, by N2369. Sir, that concludes the two items to be read into the record.
Thank you, sir. Does that complete the proceedings for today?
It does, thanks, sir.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Polney. We'll now adjourn, please, until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning and try and make sure that the heating is turned down a bit, the windows can be kept open. Thank you very much indeed.
All right.
The court staff and the shorthand writer for sitting on today.